And you've just heard Cupid's Like Watermelon by Urusei Yatsura, taken from the album We Are Urusei Yatsura, which has just had a 30th anniversary re-release. And I'm so pleased to be joined by Kemp from the band now. Hello, Graham.
Hi there.
Should say it's a 30th anniversary from the band forming, isn't it? Rather than from the release.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We've actually been thinking about putting this out since the 25th anniversary of the issuing. It was 2021, but there's a few major events happened in the world around about that time. I don't know if you've heard of it, a little thing called the pandemic. So things kind of got changed around a little bit from then and kind of dragged on a wee bit longer than it should be. I kind of blame Adele and Taylor Swift for clogging up all the record pressing plants. So they might have had something to do. I'm sure it's completely personal animus on their parts, but we can't be destroyed. It's impossible.
Absolutely. And because it's coming out in a double vinyl, isn't it? So that's hence the kind of delay, because I think they pretty much delayed every other band going.
Yeah. We're just kind of looking for the scraps, the scraps of vinyl, just get it off the factory floor and get it back in the machines, see through. We couldn't afford to get the black vinyl.
And for those who maybe aren't aware of the band, can you give us a little kind of potted history, a brief history?
Well, like you said, our kind of official date of birth is 9th of March, 1993. Had a wee note in my diary from 1994 of us with a little cake with one solitary candle in it. So that's how we can date that so precisely. But we just basically kind of pals kind of met through just random happenstance and started invited Fergus to join my imaginary band, and he invited me to join his imaginary band. So we made it less imaginary once we bumped into the Graham siblings. So they were Elaine was first dared to play bass for us and took up that dare in great style. So we kind of started playing in the Kazoo Club at the 13th Note, the old Glassford Street place.
Yeah,
it was Alex Kapranos' night there. I had a very lax kind of booking policy. So basically, we were allowed to kind of wander on stage and use kind of borrowed amps to play, and it was kind of all for funsies, really, to start off with. But it kind of snowballed as these things tend to do. So we do blame Alex for his kind of encouragement and say he is basically to blame for Urusei Yatsura. It's his fault. So any letters of complaint should be directed his way.
I was living in Glasgow city centre at the time, and it did seem to me that musically, the 13th Note was almost the centre of the universe. And, that was the place that a lot of bands were coming out of, a lot of people were going and then forming bands. Was that kind of what it was like?
Yeah, it had such a kind of open door policy, really. It was very welcoming, and we were kind of we were there a couple of nights a week, probably, just as kind of as fans, as people who like to kind of hang out, have a couple of drinks and listen to some terrible bands, and we wanted to be one of the terrible bands. It's a good thing to kind of get up and do, really, just for the kind of experience. You can no right to really slag anyone else off unless you get up and kind of expose yourself really heavy. But yeah, we kind of we're just kind of enthusiasts and fans of music and just wanted to have our chance at playing, and we just had that open stage. And as we say, we were kind of we met a lot of people through that and started putting on our own gigs around about Glasgow, and ended up kind of getting signed to a proper record label and kind of going and playing some shows like across Britain, UK, America, so it all really started from a wee basement room in Glassford Street. That's where it all kicked off from.
And did that happen very quickly? Did it go from being kind of a first on stage, maybe not knowing exactly what you're doing, and then in a few years, because it seemed like quite a short space of time?
Well, we'd never really known what we were doing, so we kind of have to make that known right away. But no, we were a couple of years, we're just playing around Glasgow, really, but just kind of getting kind of more. Every time we played, we'd have different songs, So we'd basically kind of just keep been writing for 2 years, and we ended up kind of getting invited to play with other bands and put on our own gigs in Glasgow, and I found this old flyer from like 1994, I think it was, and we had like 4 gigs in December just around about Glasgow. We'd never actually been outside of the city, so we did play a lot, but we weren't headlining. We weren't. I don't know. I kind of we weren't taking it amazingly seriously. We just kind of doing it as for the enthusiasm of it. I never thought it was going to actually be a career, or we're ever going to even get any records out, to be honest. We were always kind of aiming towards doing that, but it seemed like something that was going to be really, really hard to do. So I mean, after about 2 years of doing that, around about Glasgow, we started kind of branching out a wee bit. We kind of played with some other bands across Scotland, like Spear Snare. We would go to Dundee and play with them. We kind of played with Biss, Delgados. We had a fanzine called Kitten Frenzy that we wrote about all the kind of American bands that came to town. We'd go in and kind of interview them, and get a wee fanzine out and give it away free at kind of special nights that we'd put on. We'd have like 4-band lineups, and we'd go on first, because we just wanted to go and sort of crack open a few beers and kind of watch the other bands, really, and just we get up and break the ice, really. So it was like that, to start off with. And then once we kind of started kind of getting records out, we got a split single with the Blisters, which is Alex's old band. We got a Peel Session. We got a kind of a maxi single out, which is like the weirdest possible format to put out as your first release. A guy down in England had heard us on John Peel, so we'd sort of wanted to put something out, and we'd had a tape of about like 30 songs, so he's like, no, we can't just put out a single, we got to put out something a bit more awkward, so yeah, once that kind of came out, it just kind of went really from there. But we did have like a good couple of years just of being a kind of a band playing about in Glasgow. You'd see us in Nice and Sleazy's one night, and then we'd be playing King Tut's the next. It's getting out of Glasgow was kind of like one of the kind of points on the list. We want to do certain things like go on a tour, do a Peel Session, kind of play outside Glasgow one time, so it was good to get these sort of things checked off.
I like that idea. Yeah, like you're like, right, we've done Peel, now it's off to the next thing.
It really did open a lot of doors. It's incredible, because I mean, it was a national kind of radio show, and everyone did listen to Peel. It was one of these things that it's a cliche, but it really was like a kind of nationwide community of people who were interested in that sort of music. You would listen to that, and so they would hear bands, and if you stood out, people would ring you up and ask you to do stuff. Like put a record out. It was kind of really that simple.
Yeah, it's interesting to think back that outside of going to gigs and buying the records themselves, that pretty much was the only place you could hear what was still kind of indie music, if to categorize it that way back then. That was it, really, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, pre-internet, you got to admit, you got to remember, everything's changed now. There's different ways of kind of finding stuff. You can go into a Bandcamp page, you can go into Spotify or whatever. You can track anything down now if you want to do the detective work. But back then, there's only one, kind of clearinghouse. Apart from kind of obviously local radio.
Yeah.
Like the Beat Patrol program on Radio Scotland, they always were quite supportive of us as well, local bands. So, but past that, the Peel was the big kind of nationwide one, and it's one everyone listened to for that sort of stuff.
I was going to ask you how putting out a record differs doing it this year than 96.
Well, the really good thing about it is I get to put some of them in their envelopes, and send them off to folk. You can see, because we sold a lot on Bandcamp, because we had this page that I'd been doing since lockdown, basically, as some just an outlet for putting archive recordings on. I found a lot of kind of old kind of cassettes of gigs that we did, so I put them all up. Like just take it. I'm not charging money for it. It's just kind of there it is. If you're interested, you can have a listen. And started putting stuff on there. But that was really like a springboard to kind of seeing people actually going on and kind of buying records on the pre-sale, buying records on the day of release, just kind of seeing all these kind of pings coming in, going, okay, you've sold another record. You don't really get to see that back in the day, unless you're kind of in a record. Even then, if you're in a record company at a point in time, you would give it to a distributor and you'd see how many you got back. So you didn't really have that. I mean, the only thing near to that is when I used to work in FOP on Byers Road, and I was in there when our kind of final kind of album came out in 2001, and I did actually manage to sell one over the counter to somebody, and that's the nearest I've got to that kind of Bandcamp feeling of seeing these sales come in, and you're going, oh, people want this, it's great,
And how was it going back to the songs after all this time?
Yeah, surprising. I heard it completely differently
Yeah.
now than I did then. I mean, I don't think it's all kind of ear damage, but that might have played a part in it. But I think back at the time doing it, you're so kind of focused on it. You've listened to the snare drum, like 300 times in a row, and you don't even know what you're listening to anymore at that point. So you're focusing on all these small details, and are the vocals too loud? Did I say that word? Did I sing that word weird? So you can't really hear the songs, but now 30 years later, or 25 26 years later, I can actually hear it as a recording by a band of people that don't really have anything to prove anymore. I don't really kind of have anything to prove to myself. It's down there, it's on tape, it is what it is. And I was really kind of pleasantly surprised to listen to it and hear things in it that I hadn't heard before, things that I didn't really appreciate as a snot-nosed young punk at the time. Just the kind of the production that kind of John Rivers did for it, the things that I was hearing that he did, that I went, right, that is a good idea. Before I'd probably be kind of saying, is my guitar not loud enough? Is that feedback not ear piercing enough? But no, it's just the recording of it's really, really good. It just brings out the songs and kind of captures the kind of feel and the tone of the instruments, which is something that I wasn't probably really too worried about at the time, considering I was playing like a £10 guitar I got out of a junk shop. But it's a good recording of that £10 guitar I got out of a junk shop, and it's honest, and that's all you can really ask for, isn't it?
I mean, having listened to it again myself, they really stand up. They really stand up the test of time. They still sound as fresh as they did when I first heard them.
Yeah, it sounds like a very excited group of people, with some got a set of good songs together, and it's. I was kind of worried listening to it, like after a while, that and it's something I was really concerned about when I was sequencing the record in the first place as well. I just don't want it to be boring. I want it to be kind of enough kind of change and development over the course of it, and not too long, not too short, but it had enough variation in it that you people didn't get bored like halfway through. And considering we were very, very primitive in our approach in that record, we had a couple of distortion pedals and some guitar tunings, and really everything else was just basically played, in a lot of ways really straight. It was like we could have played that record on stage and it would sound the same.
Yeah.
If you had good enough microphones, to record it. But so we didn't like massively change much from our set. So I was kind of quite happy just to hear that, listening through, that it's a oh God, here's it's me. I sequenced it, but I'm happy about what I did back at the time. That all the choice of songs and things, it holds up for me. I think no being a massive band at the time, it's you've not heard it. People weren't playing Plastic Ashtray on street corners like Wonderwall, for 40 years, like the way it feels like with that particular song. So people aren't sick of it, I don't think. I'm not sick of it, Mind you, I didn't listen to it for 10 years, so it's the rediscovery for me is the same as a rediscovery for the folk who are kind of buying this record again. They might have heard it back in the day and get a chance to hear it again, kind of fresh, hopefully.
Would it have come out in vinyl back in the day, or was it CDs all the way?
Yeah, we were very into vinyl. I mean, the Shea Records that we were working with as well were big fans of the format of 7-inch singles, particularly were their big thing, and we were kind of just massively excited by the fact you could get records in all sorts of colors. So I think we did every color we possibly could. The first time we put the record out, there was a kind of it was called like holographic glitter vinyl, whatever. It was basically kind of like see-through vinyl with like glitter through it, and that was the apex of our kind of vinyl explorations. We love that sort of stuff. It's almost like sound quality be damned. Here we go, there's some sparkles inside it. You gotta love it, haven't you?
It sounds like the vinyl equivalent of that drink Goldschlager that was it had little bits of gold in it as well.
I think if it come out a few years later, we might use that as a marketing kind of approach there, as a Goldschlager flavored vinyl. Just don't try and bite chunks out of it. It's not going to work.
But you always had a very strong image. You obviously had the connection with the manga comic strips, and you often had toys and things like that. Did you know what your image was going to be right from the start?
I don't know. Funnily enough, I never really thought we had much of an image, to be honest. Really? We were just kind of just were into things that we were into, you know, and we just thought it would be kind of fun to do. Like the idea of just taking like a Barbie doll and putting it through, you know, the pickups in your guitar and putting it through a distortion
Yeah.
pedal and things like that. It's like a fun thing to do in a way, and it's just like a way to get good sounds that, you know, you could spend like kind of millions and like you know, years in the studio just to kind of get a sound of a distorted voice using kind of all different kind of, you know, faders and kind of effects, but you could just stick your Barbie doll through your pickups, you know, and it kind of you'll never get that in any other way. You couldn't fake it, you know. It's the same just with all the kind of stupid little things we did, you know, and like the whole kind of idea of like playing you know, a guitar like a drum, you know, using the drumsticks to kind of play it. You kind of obviously got that idea from watching Sonic Youth, you know, playing you know, other kind of a lot of their earlier tunes, you know, had a kind of a lot of that sort of stuff going on. That's just a great idea, you know, like it's just not been done by anyone else kind of since then, I don't think. But it's such good fun, and it just sounds just kind of really great, you know. I just don't understand why more people don't want to do it, you know. I mean, you maybe don't want to have every record having it in it, but you know, more than there is now, maybe.
And did you always know kind of what you wanted to sound like?
Yeah, I think in a way it kind of it's a good question, because we never ever sat down and discussed it. You know, there was never like, oh, this is going to sound like this is going to sound like that. We basically came in with songs and you know, played them until they sounded right to us, and then we stopped changing them. You know, it's just it's obviously very kind of informed by the stuff that we were into at the time. You know, we were listening to, I mean, obviously big kind of indie records fans, you know, so the whole kind of like wave of like American guitar bands that started in the late 80s, you know, your Sonic Youth and Dinosaur Juniors, your Husker Du's, you know, they're all kind of things that we were kind of listening to a lot, you know, so that's all kind of captured in there and filtered through our own particular obsessions, just to kind of bring out the sound of the record that we came out with. But we never ever kind of thought this has got to sound like something. It's like what kind of techniques were we using? Like what kind of sounds do we like the sound of? How, you know, how the you know, how do we tune our guitars is always going to make it sound a certain way, but there wasn't a level of planning in it at all. It was just really you know, what do we think would be good, and then did that.
And that was there right from the start, or did it develop over the, as you say, a couple of years before records started coming out? Just
Yeah, really developed. We didn't really sound like I mean, like on our Bandcamp kind of page, you can go and listen to gigs that we did back in like 1993. You know, it's like there's stuff on there that kind of might sound a wee bit like we kind of turned into, but it's a bit more kind of jangly guitar and you know, like I don't know, we were kind of a bit kind of camper van Beethoven, you know, a bit kind of we like beat happening stuff like that. I think you could see kind of bits and pieces like that, you know, in our sound, but it's it kind of changed a bit as we went along. We kind of got kind of some broken guitars, and we got some different pedals, and we kind of ended up kind of just playing a little bit, you know, differently as we went on, as we kind of found out how to do stuff.
yeah.
And yeah, just kind of changed quite, you know, I don't know what would you say, just kind of normally, just, you know, because every like I was saying, every time we came in to do a gig, we had like, you know, 3 or 4 new songs, you know, always changed. So the, you know, the songs kind of for the record kind of came together in that sort of way. It just like it was the best songs we had at the time, and they were just all sounded that way. It just, there was no real kind of master plan, you know. It's just the way it all worked out.
And are there any plans for future releases? Any other kind of cassettes or demos that you think you might discover?
Yeah, we've got like a few kind of like live things kind of lined up, you know, for Bandcamp. You know, we'll just put that up as just, you know, listen to it, download it, you know. Don't worry about paying it. It's not a problem, you know. But it's I mean, stuff recorded off the desk and things. It's not like massively kind of hi-fi, you know, but it can be kind of interesting to listen to if you're into that sort of thing. But I think we kind of hopefully, I mean, we did like 3 records in total, like when we were actually going. So it'd be really nice to have those out with, you know, some kind of B-sides and rare, you know, recordings on those as well. I'd really like to do that if that's turns out to be possible, but we'll see. I mean, this one's going really well. It seems that people are really interested in it, you know. So if that kind of carries on and people kind of follow us and ask us, hopefully we'll be able to make that happen.
Well, it'll be a whole new a group of listeners and followers to the debut album, as well as, you know, folk like myself who got it first time round. So hopefully that will be the case.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, everyone welcome. If anyone's kind of interested in hearing it, you know, just you know, get it and hear it. You know, you can hear us for nothing. You know, like on our Bandcamp site, that's not a problem. You know, if you want to buy a record from that, that's great. You know, buy a record. We're just trying to make them kind of sound really good and look really good, same as we did kind of back then. You know, and it's hopefully a good deal for folk, even if it's you know, like people who are new to us, people who've kind of had the records before, you know, it's going to hopefully be worth getting, you know.
Keep the pings coming as they keep selling.
I know. It's nice to be able to kind of connect with people in that way.
Sure.
You know, it's like I was saying before, it's a new thing. It's a thing we couldn't do back in the day, but I suppose back in the day, the way we did it was kind of go on tour and kind of like talk to people kind of from that. You know, we always used to have you know, there's a fanzine writers coming in and kind of giving us their copy of their latest, you know, edition and asking us questions, and maybe we get the one that we were in next time we were around, you know. So that's kind of a way we kind of stayed in contact with people back in the pre-internet days. But now you can just ping us a message, you know. It's no problem. We've kind of got like Instagram. I mean, I'm even putting photos out on Instagram, you know what I mean? We're turning into influencers. We're telling folk, look how awful you can look like and being a successful band. It's fantastic.
Well, certainly hope there is more to come. Graham, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I really appreciate it.
No worries. No, it's good to see you.
And this is Urusei Yatsura and Pachinko.